Welcome back, everyone, to the Victory Road World Cup of Pokémon VGC, sponsored by Elgato, Gigi Tour, and Metafi. My name is Ben Kiriaku, joined here by Mavo Rock, and I am incredibly excited to be able to cast this match coming up. This will be the final match that we have to show you guys this afternoon, evening, morning, whatever time zone that you are in at the moment. And it will be featuring my own team, the UK versus Peru. And I'm very, very happy to be here behind the mic with you, Maeve, to see how this game unfolds.
I'm stoked, right? I'm so excited. We talked about this right when we got on the broadcast about how this is a rematch. We've had, if you're looking at the screen today, we've had only 2-0 matches. So I would love to have a 3-game match to close off the day. We've been kind of cruising through these, but I feel like if you're Matt right now, if you're Matt Maynard, it almost feels like this is your parents watching a really important thing, just because you are one of the managers for Team UK. So I mean, not only will you get a lot of great advice to bring back to your players after commentary, but also, kind of taking in this match and seeing how it goes. But I think, it's a great way to kind of get a handle on how your players play, what their player styles are. As a manager, you do need to make pairings, based on what you think your team's strengths are, who sits on the bench what week, all of that stuff. And, Team UK has a lot to prove against Peru this week, and they are facing off a very tough opponent in Diego Gutierrez. Diego Gutierrez was the Santiago regional champion this year, one of the only regional champs of the Latin American region post online era. So, I think your teammate there and Matt has a lot to work against. But if we want to jump over and look at how both of the teams have kind of fared in this week, you guys are currently 0-1 against Peru.
That we are, yeah. We had a match yesterday and it didn't go so well, but Peru is a very tough opponent, and especially from last year's World Cup where they beat us 7-1. We've definitely got something to prove coming back to the field this time. Of course, there's still 7 matches left to go, so it's still all to play for. And I've got a lot of faith in the team that we're pitching up against Peru this week. They're all working really, really hard, and I can't not give a shout out to all of the players that we have in our team here. They've been doing fantastically. We had a group of death in the qualifiers. We managed to make our way out of it and beat Malaysia, which was in the final week, which was a really tough match to play, especially on the winning in, where we had to win the match to get through. So, regardless of the result this week, regardless of the match that we're going to see, all of the UK players, I can tell you right now, have been phenomenal so far. And Matt is definitely one of them, going already 3-0, being played all 3 weeks of the qualifiers and winning all of those matches.
If you want to chant "It's Coming Home," there is truly no better reason to chant it than if you are going through a couple of really tough groups this year. Your qualifiers had Germany, again, not my fault. That is the luck of the draw. And now you have Peru, which is, again, not Lou's fault, just the luck of the draw. But Peru, I think, was a team that was a little sneaky in how good it was last year. But then you look at the players like Diego and you realize why they are so talented. Again, Santiago regional champion, Lima special event top 8 and top 4 in 2020 and 2018 respectively. Lima June special event top 8 in 2017. So he has a lot of great finishes in the Latin American region. Definitely a player that you have to keep your eyes out for. Whereas for Matt, a lot of really talented, consistent results. Bremen Regionals top 16, Liverpool Regionals top 16, both this year. And the Players Cup 3 European qualifier top 16 and Players Cup European qualifier top 16 in 2020. Or top 6 in 2020, I mean. So, having a lot of success in this format post-online era with both the 2022 regional top cuts, or top 16s, and even with Diego, again, also that really talented in this format. And that is really important when you're pairing off against your opponents. If they're classically talented in a restricted event, whether it be 2016, 2019, 2022, it definitely matters when you're looking into playing an event that is restricted pairings.
Exactly that. And you can't You can't definitely ignore the results of either of these players. But the Diego in their own region in Latin America is a really difficult field. A lot of the players in that neck of the woods, we had to coin the phrase a few years ago, "Don't sleep on LATAM," because they absolutely love the game. They play so much of it. They work together so hard, and those results come because of it. And so, yeah, definitely a great player in Diego. As well as Matt, and we can see now what these players are bringing to the field. So Matt coming in with a Calyrex Ice Rider Palkia composition, a fairly standard, except for the last two slots being Mimikyu and the Regieleki, where usually we'd see maybe something like Tapu Fini and Porygon 2 in those slots. And Diego going for the pretty similar team to what we saw Sohybe use in the last round, actually, that Lunadon composition with the Venusaur and the Charizard, and trying to take maximum advantage of that Sun, and with a little bit of consistency coming in with that Incineroar and Grimmsnarl and Lunala composition.
Yeah, also looking like that Gavin Michaels team from Vancouver of this year. That is a team that has been so solid. And if you are prepping for Worlds or the London Open, if you are paying attention right now, this is a team you need to make sure you have a matchup for. It doesn't have to be a perfect matchup, but I think it's one you're going to have to assume is going to be kind of around the area of Worlds. So facing off against it with something a little bit funkier, another team that can kind of handle Trick Room, Lunala, if it uses that Trick Room, then it's, maybe helping out the Pokemon on Matt's side versus if it tries to go a little bit faster. But seeing the Regieleki here, it's giving me vibes way back to when we watched the matchup between Ecuador and Japan with Paul Ruiz and with Shoma with that speed swap Regieleki and Trick Room. And if we could see anything funky again like that, I would be absolutely stoked.
That would be pretty fun. We'll have to see as the game starts, with game one leading out for Diego being that Lunala and the Venusaur. Regieleki Palkia coming out for Matt. So, a little bit more of an aggressive lead there from Matt, where Diego's playing, I think, what the Lunala team is so well known for, a lead where you can pivot. Because you've got the obvious switch to Groudon, so the Venusaur gets its Chlorophyll ability. That's trained to be really, really fast. It can outspeed Regieleki in the sun, and so could be a great option for Diego to go for. And equally, you can switch out that Venusaur, pivot in some Intimidates, get a Trick Room up maybe. So you've got lots of options here that Matt will have to be navigating here. Regieleki, though, can bring the speed control, can get those Electro Webs, can also go for a max and stop any sleep powders that the Venusaur wants to go for. So a lot of options on both sides here. I'm quite curious to see how this turn is going to play out, because it will determine, I think, the pace of this match.
Yeah, it looks like there is going to be a Dynamax on Diego's side. It could be that G-Max Venusaur, and it is. So the possibility of going for something like that G-Max Vine Lash and just starting to set up that residual damage. The only Pokemon it's not going to affect on Matt's side would be that Amoonguss, so you will get a lot of really good chip damage if you are able to go for that move. But Electro Web from the Regieleki going to break the Lunala Shadow Shield and do a little bit of chip damage on both of these Pokemon. Most importantly, though, it's dropping their speeds, and without Groudon coming in, that Venusaur is going to be slower than this Palkia, who goes for that Spatial Rend, able to do brings it down to about 50%, but that Max Ooze instead into this Palkia, and Max Ooze is a move that I do not feel gets enough love. Max Ooze able to boost your own special attack. So, it's one of those moves that if there were only better options for it, then you would see it, I feel like, all of the time. Moongeist Beam from this Lunala, though, doesn't have to worry about boosting its special attack again with something like that Meteor Beam. Just going to go flat out with that Moongeist Beam, get that knockout onto that Palkia, and that was a huge turn of getting that boost for you, Lunala, without it having to set up with a move that could possibly miss.
Yeah, and that's a big turn there for Diego, getting a KO on a key Pokemon. One of the things that Palkia is great for in this matchup is to be able to sit in front of a Groudon and do lots of damage, maybe get some Wormwinds off. If you can go for the Max Geyser, then you can obviously control the weather as well, keep that weather unfavorable, so to speak, for the Venusaur. As it stands, though, Calyrex coming in for Matt will put some pressure on the field. It's certainly going to be on that Venusaur, and there is options on Diego's side of the field. We don't know what the Lunala set is at the moment, but if it's not going on the offensive with that increased stage of special attack from the Max Ooze, it could just be going for something like Wide Guard to get around a Glacial Lance and Electro Web coming out combination from Matt's side of the field. So again, still lots of options here for Diego to use, and Matt's got to have to find a way to navigate that. And I think the start of that seems to be a Dynamax coming out from Matt's Calyrex.
Yeah, no need to worry about a Wide Guard if you can only attack one Pokemon at a time with this D-Max Calyrex. Again, like you said, with something like a Glacial Lance, you can put out a ton of pressure. With something like a Max Hailstorm here, going to be a Volt Switch from this Regieleki. So 2 Volt Switch Regielekis in a row today for us, allowing for some more pivoting for Matt. Gonna be able to bring in this last Pokemon, which is going to be that Incineroar. The Intimidate's not really going to do a whole lot on the opposite side of the field. Fake Out not going to do anything into that Lunala as well, but it mostly has the ability to maybe go for a Dark-type move like a Throat Chop or a couple of other options into that Lunala and just kind of get that knockout. But G-Max Fine Lash going down into that Incineroar, another great reason to bring it in. But even still, that does a lot of damage with that +1 to the special attack. And you're going to continue to take more damage. But a Meteor Beam from this Lunala. So having no Electro Web here, I think, was really interesting because it does mean that your Dynamax Calyrex goes pretty much last, but you're getting this boost from the Meteor Beam thanks to your Power Herb, and it does connect onto the Calyrex, so even at +2, that does a pretty good chunk of damage, but it's going to show here the weakness policy. So this Calyrex now able to put on a punch of pressure with this Max Hailstorm, pack a huge punch into this Lunala, get this thing off of the field right away before it continues to get extra boosts to its special attack.
Yeah, and it's an important KO to be taking here for Matt because the Lunala is putting on so much pressure, especially with that special attack boost onto the Calyrex, and we saw how much damage that did into Matt's Calyrex, and that's really going to be impactful. The other thing that's going to be impactful is this Vine Lash damage coming out from the Venusaur here, and it did so much damage to that Incineroar on the switch in, and that's all going to be continuing to rack up here for Diego, and really putting Diego into the driver's seat here because now you can bring in your Groudon. Potentially there's a Charizard in the back for Diego, and even if there's not, maybe there's an Incineroar that can be used to put a bit of pressure on. But most importantly, this Groudon comes onto the field with Incineroar on the field right now, so no Intimidate in play. Regieleki in the back, so a lot of difficulty really with Matt switching out to Regieleki in either slot, and of course now that Sun's on the field, the Venusaur is going to be boosted up, so that speed drop that it got earlier in the game from that Regielecki's Electro Web, not going to be so impactful, especially not in front of a Calyrex.
Yeah, and this Calyrex too, we already saw that it was slower than these Pokemon, even with one Electro Web, so you still know that they are going to be moving really slowly in comparison. Groudon, not going to worry about taking a Fake Out here, as it's just going to switch right back out, bring in the Incineroar, which is happy to face down both of these Pokemon. No Charizard in back, but an important Intimidate down onto a weakness policy boosted Calyrex. So getting that extra little bit is always helpful. Max Guard, though, means that you're not going to be able to get something off that could do some more damage, like a G-Max Vine Lash. So Calyrex here getting a nice protect, but Flare Blitz in the sun into that Venusaur is enough to get the knockout here. The Incineroar will take a pretty nice amount of hefty recoil damage and retaliation, along with that G-Max Fine Lash chip, so it looks like it's probably, most likely going to get knocked out on this turn, thanks to that residual damage. But I think you're pretty happy getting rid of that Incineroar before its Gigantamax ends and can maybe go for some Sleep Powders.
Yeah, I think, you've got to be doing something here to maintain your board state, and it's a nice switch into Incineroar this turn for Diego as well, putting a bit of pressure on. There is still that Calyrex that's in its max form, and if the Groudon on Diego's side of the field has Heat Crash as the only move to take advantage of, then it will be not effective on the Calyrex that in its Dynamax form, but maybe a Stone Edge could be enough to, knock it out this turn. As it stands, though, the Regieleki on Mac's side of the field not going to be too pleased to be facing down a Groudon in this situation. And really, really nice position for Matt to be able to drop the speed of the Incineroar on Diego's side of the field, but not being able to get any speed drops on that Groudon will, I think, be quite damaging to his position.
Yeah, and that Max Guard failing this turn means that this Calyrex takes the full brunt of this Precipice Blade. It's actually showing the Focus Sash on the Regieleki, so a nice way to kind of hint at that item. Flare Blitz will be enough to wrap up here on this Calyrex, and then that G-Max Vine Lash damage will be enough to take out the single point of HP. So a very nice and commanding win from Diego, who I think had his board state pretty well sorted from the beginning of this game. Even when he lost his Lunala, he kind of was able to move with that and just allow for that Lunala having already taken some really big shots that it needed to. It already got its boost, was able to get its Meteor Beam off without that missing, and anytime you can do that, you're doing a really good job of doing a lot of damage, especially onto a Pokemon like a Dynamax Calyrex, who, if you don't hit it hard first, it is going to hit you back even harder, maybe a little slower, because not all that fast, but it is going to be able to hit you back very hard. So I feel like now, maybe if you're Matt, you might want to try and lean a little bit heavier into Trick Room, because we saw that Diego did not push for it.
Yeah, it looked like what Matt was going for in that game was a little bit more of that fast speed control, but just wasn't able to really get it going. I think maybe the Palkia going for a Dynamax in the early game could have been a lot more beneficial. I wouldn't have got knocked out by the combination of moves from the Venusaur and the Lunala in the early game, and maybe get your own Max Quake going. Maybe you can just go for a Spatial Rend and try to do even more damage into the Venusaur, and then sort of push through from there. Maybe you're in a position later game where you can get your Calyrex, go for that Trick Room with the Intimidate and Fake Out support from the Incineroar. But Diego piloted it very, very well, was able to just stay on the front foot, use all of that damage to his advantage, and really just a commanding way to win that match.
Yeah, and again, it really does show, right? I said this right when we saw it. I feel like Max Ooze is a move that, just because there are not a lot of great poison-type Pokemon that you're going to go with a Dynamax for, or not a lot of poison-type moves you're going to use, it's not a move you see all that often, but getting any way to boost your special attack is always incredibly nice. If you're going for with that Lunala, we are going for a pretty hard Trick Room lead here, possibly, unless maybe you are carrying, hopefully, something like a safety goggles on that Mimikyu there, Ben.
Yeah, well, we'll have to see what Matt has chosen to use. I, of course, know, but I won't reveal it for the rest of you viewers until it comes out, or doesn't, as the case may be, of course. But I find this really interesting, right? The Lunala Mimikyu way that they interact, because Mimikyu has that disguise ability, which is great for stopping it taking damage, but Lunala's Moongeist Beam does ignore it. So, depending on how Matt's Mimikyu's trained, the Amoonguss may or may not have to go for a Rage Powder here to redirect that Moongeist Beam. If Matt's trained his Mimikyu more specially defensively, then the Mimikyu may be able to survive that hit. If not, then the Rage Powder will have to come out. But in the meantime, we are going to get a Gigantamax coming out from that Venusaur and going straight on the offensive in the same way that we saw in Game 1.
Yeah, and if this Mimikyu went for something like a Dynamax with a Max Starfall and try and set some terrain, which it did not, always an interesting option, but instead this Amoonguss is going for the Rage Powder. Not too worried about maybe taking something like a Sleep Powder. Instead, this Max Ooze, of course, not going to worry about what that Amoonguss says, is going to go right into this Mimikyu, will break this Disguise and give it a little tiny bit of chip damage while boosting the special attack of the Pokemon on Diego's side. Like you said, Lunala's Moongeist Beam could have gone through that Disguise if there was no Rage Powder chosen this turn. However, there was. So this Lunala is going to target into this Amoonguss slot. Goes for that Moongeist Beam instead of trying to use something maybe like that Meteor Beam, because you're able to at least get this big damage off onto the Pokemon on Matt's side. Moongeist Beam with that +1 does still so much damage. And Mimikyu is able to get that Trick Room up here. So, this Amoonguss, if it wants to, maybe want to switch out, get a little bit of its health back with that Regenerator. Or now it can maybe go for something like a Spore into that Lunala and kind of just make that Venusaur have to work extra hard.
Yeah, and this is, a great trade up for Matt, I think, getting into that Trick Room condition. You mentioned it in Team Preview, Maeve, that, the Trick Room is something that Matt's going to have to really lean into here. But Diego playing consistently well, knowing that Venusaur isn't going to be affected by that Spore being a grass type, and it gives the opportunity for Diego to just get some more damage on the field, go for another Vine Lash into that Mimikyu, and knock it out in one hit after that Max Ooze boost. So really well set up board state here for Diego, but it will be a switch into Calyrex that Diego's allowing Mimikyu to go into.
Yeah, I don't think if you are Matt that you're all too upset about that knockout, right? Because you are able to send in your Pokemon that thrives in Trick Room. You know that it has that weakness policy, so if it takes something from this Lunala possibly, you could still get that weakness policy boost. You have the ability to still redirect with your Amoonguss. At least with this Calyrex too, you can even still just go for Glacial Lances. You can just get those targets down onto that Lunala, break that Shadow Shield, do a bunch of damage onto the Venusaur before this Venusaur can go for something like another Max Ooze and just continue to boost up this Lunala, who's sitting at full HP here because it has not been hit yet, thanks to a couple of protects and, the taunt even from that from the Mimikyu onto the Venusaur instead. I mean, preventing something like a Max Guard here, but not too important to worry about, but this Lunala instead switching out here, bringing in the Incineroar, getting a nice Intimidate off onto the Calyrex itself, a little bit of opportunity for something like a Flare Blitz maybe, or even a Dark type move, even though you are aware that it is holding that weakness policy. Spore though, actually not hitting with the safety goggles being the item shown on that Incineroar. Glacial Lance into both of these Pokemon does not bring either of them down below half. Venusaur gets pretty close thanks to its Dynamax HP, but Incineroar handled it like a champ. It's taking a Max Quake into this Amoonguss slot. That is going to be enough to get that knockout here. Get rid of that Pokemon that kept trying to put yours to sleep and allow for yourself to just continue to work through these turns of Trick Room. There are not that many left. I believe you're already halfway through it. So Calyrex taking that G-Max Vine Lash damage now, it's not going to love to continue doing that, even if it's in its preferred environment of Trick Room.
No, and this is a bit of a tough spot, right? Because the taunt's gone off onto the Venusaur, but the Venusaur can still Max Guard through that, I believe. Right. Yeah. Chat, correct me if I'm wrong there. Yeah. I'm not 100% sure on that mechanic, but either way, or maybe not, in fact, as the Venusaur goes back into its normal form. I clearly was not counting quite so well, and that's going to be pretty impactful, actually, depending on how these Incineroars are trained. If Matt's Incineroar is going to be going first, a combination of Fake Out and the Glacial Lance seems pretty free into Diego's side of the field here. Maybe even going for a max for that Calyrex, because the Calyrex has yet to go for its Dynamax factor. From Diego's side of the field, 4 Pokemon to 2, you can definitely stall out the last 2 turns of Trick Room here and go on the offensive when the Trick Room finally expires. And it looks like that's how Diego wants to approach this next turn.
Yeah, Groudon switching in here for the Incineroar on Diego's side, setting up some Sun to possibly allow for that Incineroar to come back in and get off another powerful Flare Blitz like we saw in that last game. But Matt now going for that Dynamax. Already the Venusaur's Gigantamax is already wrapped up, so you currently don't have to worry about something like a Max Guard stopping you from using the Dynamax turns to the best of your ability. That Glacial Lance did not do enough possibly to get really enough damage for you to get a Chilling Neigh boost, but you now possibly have the opportunity for your own weakness policy to get set up, thanks to a couple of Pokemon on the opposite side of the field. Max Hailstorm, though, into the Venusaur. A nice choice to start getting some damage and start taking some knockouts. Venusaur not able to hang on from that. Setting up the Hail as well, so stopping this Groudon from maybe getting the most of its turns in the sun. Venusaur no longer an issue, you don't have to worry about that speed, and you're finally starting to rack up some boost to your attack stat. Incineroar goes for the Throat Chop into this Groudon, showing that that is the Dark-type move that it's carrying. Does get a small amount of damage on there, and then of course both of these Pokemon are going to get hit by that Hail Chip as well. And also, that G-Max Vine Lash is going to continue to stack up against the Pokemon on Matt's side.
Yeah, and what's interesting here is the Groudon comes in. That's going to be weak to the Max Max Hailstorm coming out from the Calyrex, it's also not going to appreciate those Intimidates coming out from the Incineroar. And every time Calyrex gets a boost, it negates one of those drops that Incineroar puts onto the field. And so, depending on how the Calyrex is trained and how the Incineroar is trained, there is a question mark, certainly for me, as to whether or not the Incineroar would be able to survive a Max Quake coming out from this Calyrex, because it doesn't have that Shuka Berry. We've seen the safety goggles activate on it, and so there's an opportunity here for Matt to maybe try to snipe the Incineroar that's coming in here for the Groudon, and that looks like a fairly promising turn.
Yeah, I believe we did kind of get a peek at what could be a really nice snipe here, like you said. Attack getting dropped thanks to that Intimidate once again from this Incineroar, but the Lunala protecting here, not trying to take any major damage, trying to still maintain as much of a threat as it has been. But this Max Quake into this Incineroar, like you said, it is not holding Shuka Berry, it is holding safety goggles, it's already taken some chip, but definitely important to see how those Intimidates have kind of helped against this Calyrex. Getting still the nice special defense boost as well to maybe help out with something like a move from that Lunala, Moongeist Beam even. But Flare Blitz into this Incineroar does not do a whole lot of damage, but you're still covering for that Groudon, I think, in there as well.
You certainly are, and the Max Quake boosts are really impactful, I think, with this Lunala coming onto the field. Something Calyrex definitely doesn't want to take any damage from. That Moongeist Beam does so much damage. And especially with the Trick Room expiring this turn, it's so important to both do damage to that Incineroar as well as get those Max Quake boosts out. But Diego's timed the Lunala coming in so well here. The Lunala's going to put on a heap of pressure. We'll be able to get a boost as well as knock out the Incineroar really without any challenge at the moment. And certainly Calyrex with 2 stages of decreased attack, should I say, is unlikely to be able to knock out this Lunala without critical hits. So well positioned here from Diego, and I think the real question is, what's the last turn looking like, and how does that Groudon stack up against this Calyrex once Calyrex is not any longer in its Dynamax form?
Incineroar goes for exactly what Incineroar loves to do, and that is a fake out into an opposing Incineroar. Lunala going for the Meteor Beam here, so getting back that +1 boost to its special attack that it had gotten thanks to that Max Ooze on turn 1. And going to allow for it with this Power Herb to go off in 1 turn. Looks like hopefully targeting into this Incineroar, it does connect as well. Trying not to do too much damage maybe onto this Calyrex to avoid attacking it with its weakness policy. A critical hit as well onto that Incineroar means that is all set, thanks to the +1 boost to that special attack as well. But this Max Hailstorm from the Calyrex, still going to be able to put on a lot of damage to this Incineroar, should still be able to get this knockout here as well. Thankfully get another boost with that Chilling Neigh, and you're not going to have to worry about something like another Intimidate coming out. However, you're at the end of your Dynamax turns, and Trick Room is over, like you said, so this Lunala may still be taking a little bit of chip damage, but it is still faster than you.
It is, and now this Groudon is coming in, setting up the Sun. Going to be faster than the Calyrex, as is almost surely Lunala. So you've got that combination of Moongeist Beam and Fire Punch, Heat Crush, Stone Edge, potential, even Shadow Claw technically from the Groudon on Diego's side of the field would be really likely to do quite a lot of damage to this Calyrex, and especially now that Lunala has got its own special attack boost to mitigate the special defense boost, at least one of them that the Calyrex has had. It's really difficult to see how this Calyrex could even hope to pull through.
Yeah, it is going to try its best, at least right now, thanks to this Moongeist Beam, but no, that Calyrex is not able to hang on there. Not able to, if it had been able to take that in its Dynamax form, you would have gotten maybe that weakness policy boost, but it does speak to Diego to understand, hey, I have this incredibly powerful Pokemon attacking me in its Dynamax form, but if I just let its Dynamax time out, then I don't have to worry about it proccing its weakness policy, because when I hit it with a move that's super effective against it, when it's not Dynamax, it's going to get knocked out anyway. So really nice understanding by Diego on that game state. I know now you probably have to give Matt a little bit of homework maybe in rewatching his VOD here. And that does put Peru up 2-0 against the United Kingdom. So, I think at this point, it's like, like you've said as well, Peru is a very strong team. They have a lot I know England has a lot to prove, but also Peru has a lot to show. So it becomes, I think, a little bit interesting, right? Because now you have to focus on, okay, what have these two teams brought? What is Peru kind of leaning towards? And again, we've seen that team from Gavin Michaels just kind of be really dominant in the format. Of course, not as dominant as Rinja Sun was for about an 8-week span, but it's still a team that we are currently seeing all over the place.
It is. And, really both players actually played pretty well, but it was Diego that managed to, position the board state so well. Had a little bit of a positive matchup by the looks of things against Matt. So, no shame for us to be going 0-2 down. There's still 6 matches left to play. So, for me, it's a case of going back to the drawing board with the team and carrying on. And of course, well played to both the Peruvian players that have managed to take wins so far.
Yeah, and just taking a look at the games that we've had today, all of them were honestly pretty quick 2-0s. So not a lot of talking in comparison to some weeks where I am trying to sneak sips of water in between every time I stop speaking. So a lot of really heated matches today, nothing that really brought us into a game 3. So pretty decisive from all of our players. I know I was, again, very excited to see both South Korea and the United States today finally making their, to me at least, if they played yesterday, but to me, making their stream debut where I can kind of get a look at what these teams are kind of bringing in and how they're being run as a country itself. So it's kind of crazy as we begin to wrap up here for today, but don't forget we do have more matches tomorrow. So tomorrow's matches are going to be really exciting. Fevzi Ozkon is going to be playing against Tomoyuki Yoshimura. So that is already looking at Japan versus Germany. That's a match that is absolutely crazy. Narowich Naena, we saw him a lot last year against Devin Singh, Gabriel Berrios, and Leonardo Bononomi. Again, also a lot of really strong players here. Last game as well, Victor Medina versus Si Mengru. So that first match is already going to be absolutely killer. I love that we're kind of showing that first to help with the Japanese players who are 13 hours ahead of me, so they would be watching very late at night. A lot of credit to them for the dedication they have to their team for the World Cup.
Definitely. They're such a force to be reckoned with, as are Germany, of course. Good to see Victor as well from Spain. Obviously, Spain haven't been able to play so far, didn't have to go through the qualifiers, nor did Italy. So we're seeing a lot of good stuff tomorrow, and it'll definitely be well worth coming to join us. Of course, if you want to keep up with all of the action so far, there's been results away from the stream as well. We have so many teams playing in this section of the tournament. We have the Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, and Discord. Join every single one of them. Keep up to date with everything that's going on in the World Cup. There is so much to see, so many matches that are streamed, especially shout outs to the YouTube as well. There are more matches on there than just what happens on the stream as well. So if you want to go back and see what happened in the qualifiers or what's been happening this week in the group stages, definitely check that out. And of course, all of the stats on worldcupvgc.com.
Yeah, and also with that YouTube link as well, something that you may see, all of the matches that we do commentary over, they all get uploaded, but there are extra matches every single week from teams that are, put up on that YouTube. So there's always extra content. It's not just the 12 matches that we bring you guys every weekend. There is more content. Lots of these players in World Cup have capture cards, so we're very thankful to be able to show off so many different matches from so many different players every single week for the World Cup, especially now that we're able to bring in those top 8 teams from last year. It's been awesome, especially for us, to be able to take a look at so many different teams and so much in-depth analysis brought from my other co-casters. So, like you said, we will be back tomorrow at 2 p.m. UTC. So that is a little bit earlier than today. That's about 4 hours. 4 hours earlier than today's start at 12, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe I could be incorrect there, but it's very, very exciting to be able to come back, start a little bit earlier tomorrow for our friends in Japan, who will be watching it at a little bit of a later time. Sorry, 2 hours earlier. So it would be, if you were me in the eastern coast of the United States, we started right at noon today. We'd be starting at 10 a.m. So if you are watching in Japan, you would be watching at 11 p.m. So like I said, lots of dedication from those Japanese players and all the players really in Oceania and Southeast Asia that tune in on time zones that are not always friendly to them, but we do try and cater. But again, thank you so much for all of our sponsors, Elgato, GG Tour, Metafi for continuing to sponsor the World Cup of VGC. We are, of course, incredibly grateful for that. And Ben, I don't know if you got any more parting words for us here.
No, none from me. The matches have been so good today. We've had 2-0s, which doesn't normally happen, but just shows how dominant these players can be and how explosive these matches can be. So more of that tomorrow. Join us again, as we said, at 2 p.m. UTC. Thank you from me. Thank you from Maeve. Thank you for Evan in the back and all of the Victory Road team for tuning in. And we will see you 2 p.m. UTC tomorrow.